Right. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do that. If there's. I might see them taking. Once they come in, I'll scoot over there. I think so. A long summer out in the field. Going.
Hi there, come on in. Stay out of trouble.
I'm trying. You doing all right? It's been a minute. Say again? Yeah. Been following what's going on over there. It's kind of crazy, but doing what we can. Oh man, I tell you. Right? Yeah. I was shocked how quickly they did. I mean, they needed to do it. Right. Well, right. That's good. That's good. You can't do that in school.
It's good to see all of you. Some of you I haven't seen for a while, and some of you I've seen recently. So, like yesterday, like my son and his wife, I had her here this morning. Anyway, we start the ceremony every time with a prayer, and so Mary is going to come and start us off. And for that, we'll immediately do the Pledge of Allegiance.
The reason I'm doing this is because my wife is home. As of Wednesday, she had her rotator cuff surgery. So she's still not doing a whole lot. So her sister is staying with her, so I can be here. So let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, for what it means to us and live in a country like we do. This guy protect each one, all of the politicians, all from the federal to the local. Just bless each one, help him to be informed of what we need to be informed about. And just help our panel up here, just help them, encourage them in all they do. And we'll give you all the praise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have just one announcement, and we're not doing any other thing of what we normally would do at the Tea Party meeting, but because we want to give you time really too with the legislators at the end, just like one-on-one. This one announcement, I just want all of you to begin thinking about first choice for women is one of the things that we really support and probably use as well. And they have every year a fundraiser, and that's going to be on Tuesday, October 24th of 2023. It's 6:30 p.m. at the Horizon Convention Center, and their speakers, someone that I really love. How many of you know Peter Heck? Yes, he's going to be the speaker for that event, and he is a powerhouse of a speaker. So if you want to have a table, be a table sponsor, you can either let First Choice know that or let me know that, and I'll take care of it. Or if you just would like to go and sit at somebody's table, we'll work that out for you too. So I wanted to do a short introduction of our speakers, and I think most of you probably know them. We have Scott Alexander and J.D. Prescott, and they're going to give us, I think, an update on where it started, how it was modified, and their opinions on what should happen next. This all started, you remember, with Senate Bill number 4, which created the Governor's Health Commission. And so Scott and JD are going to tell us, they're going to let us know what the benefits are of this new thing that's happening and if there are problems. Then Ashley Grogg is over here on this side. Ashley is the founder and I don't know, he's the president or director, whatever. Yeah, Hoosiers for Liberty. She's a registered nurse, and the area she needs to share as she studies the legislation and her suggestions on how it might improve it. Okay. I just learned a couple of days ago that commissioners in Baldwin County have already opted in. So that is not an option for us now. And so our speakers and all are going to tell us what good things this does for us. And if they see areas that need, this is good because they're in the legislature. Ashley is looking at the legislation and we're going to vote. Okay, so I have invited also the commissioners and county council members. There are maps here. If you don't know what county council district you're in, over here is county commissioners. I want you to know what district you're in so you know whether to vote yay or nay when the election comes up. We do want to keep track of this thing. So with all of that said, I wanted to just encourage. Let me turn this over. I wanted us to have an orderly procedure. So we're going, after each speaker, we're going to have time for questions from you guys. And so please hold up your hand and I will bring the microphone to you, okay? If there is time left after the speakers and questions, you may talk personally with the speaker until 8:30. Is that okay? Well, you won't be here that long, but is that okay, JD?
I got about an hour.
Oh, okay. Both of them had about an hour. It's a good thing we had first on the agenda. So, with no further discussion, we'll turn the meeting over to Scott is going to be our first speaker. He has asked me to pass these out to you, so I'll do that. And Scott, if you guys will use, you can share the microphone and we'll get going. Oh, I did. I'm sorry. I said hello to him when he came in. Yeah.
Is this man? That one's correct.
They're new ones.
That's the new one. That's the new one, but ones that are printed out are old.
Oh, okay. This one is correct. I thought it was in. Yeah. Okay. So all of you, we do have a county councilman. Would you stand up, Bill, and let us see what you look like? District 2. Okay. All right. Then, yeah, you didn't look at the county council.
Well, that's what he saw in the county council.
I mean, the commissioners on one.
That was correct. I think
Yes, yeah, okay. All right, the maps are good. If you don't know what district you're in, or if you don't know who your county commissioner is, it's over here. Okay, and Ashley will speak when the legislators are finished. Ashley will speak.
we have no pocket constitutions to pass out today. I was gonna count them and bring them with me today, but I left them at the office, so.
Thank you.
Better?
Yes.
All right, too bad. All right, just a quick session, wrap up too, and I don't think I've met with you guys since then, but really we've made a lot of progress in a lot of different areas this year. I'm low on complaints this year, which must mean we've done a pretty good job of getting things done. Maybe not, but that's where we're at. In the interim, I've been meeting with all the schools in my district. Kind of getting more. I was interested in seeing in the schools was programs for getting kids to the workplace that aren't going to go to college, or kids that may want to go to college and work their way through college. So I've actually been very pleasantly surprised with some of the programs that are offered, not just in Delaware County, but Randolph County as well. Lots of other stuff that's been going on. But I think what we're here today about is was Sentinel 4's SEA for now. This is one I know both JD and I talked on this all through the session. We're real happy with it. Voice my opinions pretty loudly in our caucus. Don't have a lot of faith that I guess the health departments can pull this off. We're telling people that do things that aren't good for them, not to do them, basically, and that's probably not going to work. I would imagine they'll be back to see us at some point in time in a couple of years here and need more money, move the needle. So, in my opinion, it needs more work. There was a couple other problems. Just followed COVID. Lots of people didn't trust what was going on at the state level. From the governor's office, the health department, that group. So it was pretty bad timing to roll all this out too. But it is what it is. It's passed at this point. We've got to hope that we can make some progress in these areas. Again, I'm not real confident that's going to happen, but we've got almost, I think we're down to 12 or 13 counties that have either said they were going to or have already enrolled in the program. So it was a priority bill for, the Senate side, the House side, the governor's office to get through, so it's probably gonna go somewhere. We were able to get some changes made in it, that I think are good. One of the changes I asked for was kind of tall, that we get the governor's name and Dr. Box's name off of. We did what we could there. I think it does have, there are some good, good checks to it. It's not just the health department that signs off, it's the state budget office, so we can have some oversight there, but, I don't know, you asked me to say some good things about it. I don't know if I've covered those yet, but, you know, if we are able to move the needle, what I passed out was basically what's on the health department's website, to y'all.
I need some more of those stuff.
I have some more of those.
Yeah.
And this is where, this money intends to move, but okay, okay, just leave me one, so in case I need to go back to it. I do have an updated list, but it's kind of been chicken scratch up to get it up to today, so it's real hard for you guys to understand, so I didn't print that out for everybody. If you want to see who's in and who's out, or who's going to be in, who's going to be out, we have to talk again on that. If it were to do all these things, I think it would make a difference. But, you know, the idea behind all this, and you kind of see from the information I passed out, is to get the state out of the low end. Over 6th, 7th, 9th, 19th, 25th. And we fall, you know, towards the upper end of the state's rankings on the other side of this thing. Like I say, I don't have a lot of confidence we're going to get there, but now it's on its way. The way it was set up for these counties, it was real hard for them not to turn down, or to turn down, excuse me. And I think most of the people, if you were sitting in their shoes, you probably would have done the same thing if you were at the county level. So I think I'll quit there and we'll move on to JD.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having us. First, before we get started, I'll thank you for Scott and give you some of the things going on. I too have been going around schools and districts, businesses and districts. Just spent a good portion of the day-to-day up in the county with the RMCs, utilities, hearing what they're doing to update the electric infrastructure and reliability standpoint. So just really getting out to the district, meeting with those business leaders in the area, as well as we serve on interim study committees as well. So the interim study committees I'm on this year are the Corn Marketing Council, the Drainage Task Force, this year. Actually, the Corn Marketing Council meets this week, so I'll be in Indianapolis Wednesday, Thursday for that one. Then going back to Senate and roll back to one other thing too. We did get some good news out of the state Supreme Court today. Senate Bill 1 special session, Planned Parenthood was denied their rehearing of that. So Senate Bill 1 special session with that. There is still a hold for the Marion County decision, but that is for a very narrowly focused people that still be able to proceed. So it is, for the most part, it is correct. I believe we will prevail in that court case. Obviously, keep too much on so good news out of the Supreme Court this afternoon. Going back to Senate Bill 4, Scott covered most of, I guess, what you call the good, and it's hard to find. Honest, I believe I bills as well. I didn't like the legislation. Still have concerns over it. One of the better pieces that was put in there that was not in the original bill is counties do have the option to opt out of the original bill. So that was it would be better to have re-up every year or that stands, at least they can opt out at any time as well. So that is true. So And we did reduce the funding that was being requested by the Department of Health. It's still much, but at least get it reduced. So one of them that leads to one of my largest concerns with the bill is just the funding that's tied with it in general from the state's general fund. By this, we've got a growing problem. Now we are creating this new public health initiative, and I agree with Scott. I think in 2 years they're going to be back asking. Well, we haven't had enough time to update and improve this working. So we just need to trust us, trust the experts. That's what they're going to come back and say. So it will be rehashed during the budget cycle. It is a budget now, so it will be up for debate again in the budget cycle. It might not be a standalone bill, but we will have to have stuff. And then the other concern I have is that make some tweaks or improvements on this. If you look at the vote counts, it was 74 yeses, 21 noes, 4 excused on final passage. Counts the 4 excused as conference committee going on. And then the Senate it was 39 yeses and 10 noes. Feel free to there. So it did pass overwhelmingly. So not like the volumes currently haven't changed much of that now. After this next year, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up either. But I did approve this legislation and I still have problems.
Scott, this was your first session in the Senate, right? But JD, I'm not sure. I know you've been there for a while, but I'm not sure how long.
This was my 5th session. I was elected in 2018, 2019.
Okay, all right. Okay, if any of you want to ask questions, just hold up your hand. I'll bring the mic over. I want to be sure that everybody in the room can hear the responses. So, questions for Scott or JD?
Let me add one other thing, Margaret, too. We did get it in there that it was originally when this bill came through, it was going to be just the commissioners to approve it. And I had a real problem with that coming from county council, that there wouldn't be some kind of oversight approval. And that's kind of where it turned the corner to become more of a grant program where there had to be a match from the county, and the county council had to have a say in this too. So there's
Right.
2 areas of oversight locally. Again, if they decide this isn't working or doesn't work for each county, they can always pull back on it at some point in time, unless there's a change in the law.
Okay, so now surely all you guys are not sitting here with no questions. I don't really know a whole lot about this. But I just have to do something. I haven't asked it yet.
I'm a real strong advocate for incentivizing, and I wondered if there is any incentive for the counties that accept this to improve their performance and potentially receive better funding.
Yeah, I don't know that there's specifically incentive in there. There is some directive on where we want to see changes again, and that's where the oversight of the state budget office comes into play as well. But that doesn't mean that we can't look to add incentives going down the road, especially if we see this back in a couple of years and they want more money.
As we know, when you're getting a grant, there is no reason for you to fix the problem because down the road you can apply for another grant. So that might be something to consider going forward, is actually incentivizing the counties that are doing well.
And so I had a conversation with Dr. Box on this. I had a conversation with Dr. Box during the legislative session. She was trying to lobby to support the bill, and I had a similar conversation on incentivizing. And one of the reasons they didn't want anything in the statute for that was each county's gonna have different targets. And then the other part of it too, which metrics are you looking at? It was hard to get a clear answer, which ones that they're going to come back and report to us back in 2 years on. Because I'm looking at it from all one ways and means, so I want to know, especially here in 2 years, okay, what's working, what's not working, and they couldn't give a clear answer on that, and that was interesting.
I would tell you that Jamie Bain sent me a lot of information this afternoon. He has been very helpful. And so if any of you have any questions, you should feel free to contact him. Jamie is the administrator of the Delaware County Health Commission. Yeah, so don't hesitate to call him at all if you have questions.
Just one follow-up on that, they do have to come and re-up for this plan with an updated plan to get approved again through the Board of Health, but also the state budget agency.
So are there points of accountability that they have to reach? Like on an annual basis, or starting out with a target audience of so many people and they're checking, I mean, what's the accountability?
Yeah, the way I believe it's set up now, and I think this is somewhat subject to interpretation, but each county board will assess the problems in that county that they want to correct with this money, put together a plan, get that plan approved by the state and the state budget agency, and then go after that plan. So if they're showing improvement, so those numbers are what they are, and those numbers will be set out, but is there real oversight to it? My answer is no.
We have a doctor in the house.
Yeah.
Dr. Lindquist.
Are there any mandates? I'm not from Indiana, I'm across the border in Ohio. I deal with the legislature over there. And our concern is something like this coming into Ohio, which will have specific mandates rather than local targets.
The main mandates that are in the bill is a certain percentage of the funds have to be designated to certain public services. I'm sorry, I don't have that list in front of me, but there are, and really it was to try and limit health departments, especially some overzealous health departments, from pulling in and over-regulating on septic permitting and another, where we've had some issues with some health departments kind of being too aggressive on certain areas of permitting requirements that need be. So that's the major mandates of the bill. They have to essentially stick to those funding mechanisms that are in place. I'm sorry, I'm vaguely remembering that portion of it. And then they also have to cooperate with the schools as well on they would be tasked with that, but no, it's really, for the most part, it's all county side. And there's provisions in the bill that prohibits any state Department of Health regulations coming down on top of the local. It's not addressed.
So it's totally targeted.
It's targeted to the
Just to make sure. Let's say next year, the governor, every county will follow X, Y, and Z. Do you have to do that as a county, or do you have to give the money back if you indeed want to be autonomous? Not meaning that you have to follow the state body, because it's my kind of understanding that this money comes from the string. The string is you do what we said. You pay us back the money. Is that correct or not?
that is not correct.
Yeah, this is more and more here going to reports trying to improve the health in the counties, and the feeling behind it, I think, is that they feel like the local health departments are better prepared to assess their counties and know what those needs are. And those needs may not be the same in every county, especially when you're in highly populated counties versus rural counties. I think there was some concern, I think, from the health department side, whether some of the rural counties would sign on, because there was some pushback from some of the rural counties, but their claim is they tend to benefit more from having more money for public health and are better prepared to move the needle than some of the larger counties would be because of the population problems that they have.
In the original bill,
Yeah.
that was the case.
Yeah.
That was pretty much everybody.
Other questions? Good, I'm glad to see our council question.
It's not so much a question, but for the information as a group, I thought this might be. Currently, the Board of Health in Delaware County has 3 separate budgets because they're 3 separate funding sources. The main one is 2023 budget was $858,000. 858. They're requesting for next year 840. And that's the mandated amount that is the match to the state funding. And there are 2 smaller budgets that they have also. One of them for next year would be $39,700 request. The other one is $103,000, was $119,000. State money next year goes into a new fund, and Delaware County share is $1,299,638.
That please.
$1,299,000.
That's close enough.
$1,299,638. The other piece of information, as you may be aware, we're starting our budget hearings in 2 weeks on Wednesday, September 6th. The Board of Health is scheduled at 4:30 that afternoon. 4:35. We're not always on schedule, but that's for your information, and that you may also be aware budget hearings to be live streamed.
One very quick, brief question. Is there any of this that overlaps the federal money coming in from localities?
Yeah, this is all out of general fund.
It's all out of general fund, there's no federal connection at all.
Right.
They cannot. I mean, that's part of the bill, isn't it? That our match cannot be any federal money or any fees or anything that's already there. It has to be another source.
You guys are talking about different things. He's asking if federal government, you're talking about grants from state and federal or fees from, say, permitting and stuff like that. Your match cannot be made of the permitting funds. So your health department puts out as a permit for a sewer system or whatever. The money collected from that cannot go towards the county match. That's a separate piece. So this is a dedicated amount of money that's going into this account, which, as the councilman said, is for Indiana as it stands, it's about the same amount as the budget they have now. So, because I looked at this very carefully, I was very, very skeptical because I was worried that this was going to increase local taxes, still coming out of your tax states. But those 2 are definitely counties. Putting that money into the different programs in the health department.
Okay. Other questions? Everybody's, okay, I thought surely we're not.
Is there any plans, I'm concerned to put any type of medical things inside of the schools?
There is nothing in the bill. medical clinics, they could partner with the schools and other providers, they could already do that. So like, you know, schools, for example, in Randolph County, they already have a medical clinic, and so in that, they could have done that, they did that, it was still passed, so that could already happen.
Okay, if everybody's had their questions answered, we're gonna go ahead and take a break a little bit early so that you can have a chance if you want to talk to the legislators. You wanna go?
Yes, I have no question.
She wants the legislators here, okay?
Yeah.
Right, Scott.
Okay.
Go, Ashley.
All right, so I want to thank Scott and Jamie, because they illustrated a lot of my points perfectly. And what this really comes down to is what kind of a price do you want to put on your freedom? Now, a lot of legislators and even your neighbors over in Wayne County are hearing from Brad Barrett, who was the sponsor of the bill, and the chairman of the Health Commission. He's telling them that, hey, we are good guys, and we protected you by putting this clause in here that says the counties retain autonomy. Because if you go back to those original commission meetings, they talked about how they're going to force every county to comply with these additional metrics for public health services. And they talked about how they were going to use that financial incentive, those requirements, to force them into opting in. I really encourage you, if you've not watched the videos from the June 30th meeting of the Public Health Commission, to go to those. Those are on our website. I've shortened them down into about 10-minute clips. I've also linked to the full videos so that way you can watch it and make sure that it's in context. But it's really disheartening when you see this. And yes, the legislature did put in a clause saying that the counties retain autonomy. However, they also left a clause in there stating that the eligibility for funding is dependent on compliance with the rules from the health department. So administrative rules that are not voted on or put into place by elected officials, but rather the bureaucrats down at the health department. And those are what your county is going to be held accountable to. Now, if we look at historically what has happened, and COVID was a great example, you're right. What did our county health or our state health department do? Okay, so yeah, your administrative rules can be changed at any time. If you look in the code, and I just put, I need to refresh my website because the blog isn't posting, but I have all this, I put everything out there because I want to be transparent. I don't want you guys to trust me at my word. I want you to go find out for yourself and feel comfortable with what's happening, because that's what government is supposed to be. That's what your elected officials are supposed to do. And unfortunately, whether it is through ignorance or whether it is because they are maybe listening to too many of the wrong voices, they're missing these key points. So your eligibility is tied to administrative rules that can change at any time. Looking at that code, you can see that there are requirements for mandatory testing, vaccination in schools. When the COVID vaccine came out and was listed as recommended by the CDC, everybody was up in arms. Everybody was so upset because they thought that the children were going to be mandated to get the COVID vaccine. And the State Department of Health may or may not have gotten a few calls from some of you. And they announced that they would not be changing that requirement because through those administrative rules, they have the power to do that. They are granted that power by the state legislature. So when we talk about strains within this bill, we're talking about those. And when we talk about the concern over the financial strains, and no, there is nothing in the bill that says that the counties will have to pay it back. But there's also nothing in the bill that says that the counties don't have to pay it back. So it's very vague, and I've heard legislator after legislator say this, and yet here we are, they voted the darn thing through. And, you know, thank you for being so honest, Scott. I really appreciate your candid conversation, and I want to work with you. I truly want to make Indiana better. My goal in politics is to make it so that way we can be proud of our politicians, so we can give them firm ground to stand on and help them do their jobs of representing the people. I truly want that. And so if you want honest opinion and you want backing and you want to make sure that your citizens aren't going to be angry,
Let's have the conversation. This tonight is perfect. So thank you for being brave and coming here and having this conversation. So, you know, there's nothing in the bill that says that we're going to have to pay it back, but there's nothing in there that says that we're not. What happens when your county accepts the funding and I don't know, in November or December, all of a sudden the next new variant comes out or pandemic phase 2 comes through and President Biden is now saying, hey, you know what? You're going to have to wear masks, and guess what? Your church, I'm sorry, sir, but you, pastor, are going to have to tell your congregation that you can't gather in groups larger than 25. Who would enforce this in Wayne County? Who would
That's what
enforce it?
she's talking about. I mean, just, what,
No,
what not?
it is.
No, it's not.
Go look at the administrative rules and see what the health department has the powers to do. Or they're contingent. You're interrupting my time. I was patient and silent the whole time you spoke.
But I was honest.
And is there, show me where I'm wrong. Show me where this, the health department cannot add that to the administrative rules.
They cannot have a callback provision for administrative rules. I have to go through the budget agency.
To be eligible for funding, they have to follow the rules. Do you want the code so you can look it up? Okay,
Can you give us the codes?
sure. Indiana Code 1646-10-6, that's eligibility clause number 3, is where it talks, I think it's either number 1 or number 3, where it talks about the requirement is to follow the administrative rules put forward by the State Department. Okay, so they have 30 days to rectify those transgressions against those rules, and if they don't rectify them, they will no longer be eligible for funding. So again, does that mean that they have to pay it back? I don't know. It's not in the bill. Does that mean that they just miss out on the next year's funding? I don't know. It's not in the bill. So there are a lot of gray areas. So what is your right to freedom worth? Is it worth $1.3 million? Can you put a price on freedom? So we heard both of these gentlemen talk about how there's not a lot of good in this bill. Simply voting right, which I appreciate you voting no, and you were consistent in your voting, but simply voting right is not enough. These guys have to stand up to the caucus. They have to be free thinkers. When I raise my children, I raise them to question everything. That creates a lot of problems in our home because we're all very strong-willed. But you know what? I want my kids to ask questions. I want them to think for themselves. I don't want them to be lemmings and all jump off the cliff because somebody leading did it. That's not how government is supposed to work. And yet we hear them talk about how bad this was, how there's nothing good, but it was signed off by the governor. And it was signed off by both the Senate and the House committees. And so we had to do it. No, that is not what we elected you to do. Stand up and be brave. If you guys want to fix this, got this legislative season coming up. First of all, I think the biggest concern on everybody's mind is their right to bodily integrity. I've got a petition in the back of the room. You sign it. Bodily integrity is your right to be free of interference, to be whole and intact. That's medical liberty, and that's what we want. So be expecting calls. You said you were low on complaints, so I'll send some calls your way. But we want our bodily integrity, and that's why this is so important to us, because we've seen this violated at the hands of our health departments and enforced. So first of all, Bodily Integrity Act needs to be passed legislative session 2024, period. The least you can do is fix your mistake and the negligence. And Mr. Barrett seemed to be surprised, Representative Barrett seemed to be surprised when a group of his constituents talked to him about this. And he seemed, by their report, to be surprised that this clause was in there. So I'm hopeful that you guys will go back down to the State House and at a minimum, remove this. Let's give people back their bodily integrity. There were several other things that were impressed upon. We talked about mandates a little bit. It's a 40-60 split. Those are on the Florida Public Health Services. So there's 2 generalized categories. The 40% is typically the things that are done by your health departments now, you're permitting, the sanitation and that sort of thing. And then the 60 split, it's more about making sure that the money is kind of going to some of these newer health programs. I'm not convinced that this isn't going to turn into a Medicaid for all situation, and I think we all need to be watching for that, because I even talked about this on the House floor. I was testifying against the bill, and Representative Cindy Ledbetter from the southwest side of the state agreed with me that this was more about treating chronic disease rather than prevention, and public health is prevention. I have lots of ideas. I naively said when I started this journey that I would start out in medical liberty and secure our medical liberty in 5 years. We're going into year 4, just to put that out there. And then I would move on to healthcare reform, because we have some serious problems. But one of those problems is in this country, we take and dump truckloads full of money on health problems, and it doesn't change. I have a tremendous amount of experience in this because of my healthcare background. I helped develop the heart failure program at a major regional hospital. And I watched as these things that would have made a difference focused on prevention. One of our plans was to take our patients and teach them how to cook real food, because most of them buy from fast food or from boxes. And we wanted to take and teach our patients how to use real food, because they didn't know how to use it. That is prevention. Let's take and put a nutritional program in these schools. Let's teach these kids how to eat real food. Let's have them grow it in the garden. Let's make that part of their curriculum, because where does health start? With your nutrition, what you're putting in your body. We grow self-respect, and we understand that we have one body. This is all we get. We have to instill those values in our kids. That is how we change public health. It doesn't come through a pill. It doesn't come through a needle. I can show you that. And this is what makes me so upset with this program, is because they did put a generalized framework here. When I made the recommendations of making this a grant program, what I talked about was, okay, Indiana State is going to say, let's address nutrition in school, and you can have X numbers of dollars, and they apply for the funding, and they get the funding for a specific measure. When they get the funding, they execute that. This isn't just about population served. That's not an adequate measure of success, because that's what it's going to come back to. Mark my words. Your health departments are going to say, oh, we served 10,000 more families this year, and it was so wonderful. And I'm sure that they are trying their best, but without the right guidance, it doesn't amount to anything. We're flushing money down the toilet. And so we need our legislators. We send you to the State House to represent us, not Eli Lilly, not the Hospital Association. We sent you to the State House to represent us. And so we have to do that. So let's work together. You said earlier, I think we're all on the same side. We all are. We all want a healthier Indiana. Let's make that happen together rather than working with the big interest groups. Okay, so I'm trying to go through all my notes to make sure I hit all these points. I think you guys get the point. You can go on my website and look at all these things. I encourage you to question. The handout that we passed out, it's rough, and I'm sorry, there's a lot of words on there. It's not pretty, but there's talking points at the bottom. Go to your county commissioners, because they're going to have to make a choice. Are they going to opt out of this? Let's just pretend, hypothetically speaking, that mandates come back. The federal government tells the health departments that they have to do X, Y, and Z, which would be requiring masks, limiting gatherings, and shutting down non-essential businesses. And your health departments were the ones who did that. If the federal government comes through and says that, and they make that an administrative rule for threatening or emergent respiratory infections or whatever the case may be, is your county going to say, we're done with this funding, we don't want any more? Now, you're a year, 2 years in, you've hired 6 people and they're all really fantastic people. You know, Rebecca, she's got the 12 kids and her husband's a pastor and he don't make a lot of money. So, you know, if we cut Rebecca's salary, that's really hard. Or if we have patients that are depending on these services because they can't go to get them anywhere else, and all of a sudden we yank that funding out, where are they gonna get the money to replace this, or are they gonna stay in it because they can't get by without the funding? They're just gonna cut those services willy-nilly. Those are not easy decisions to make. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. So when you're making these decisions, you really have to ask yourself, do I want to do this? Now, Mr. Alexander brought up the map and you showed me, yes, all these counties are opting in. Why would you turn down $1.3 million in 1 year? It doesn't make sense. A lot of these counties are talking about how they don't know how they're going to spend this money. So do you think your taxpayer dollars are going to be spent well? I mean, really, do you think that they're going to be spent well? Do you think you're going to see a return on investment? Or is our state budget going to continue to blow? I'm betting the latter. Johnson County, God bless them, they denied this program. And in the handout, there's the article. You can, I'll make sure the blog post gets up tonight. You'll be able to read in the daily journal. They talked about the additional strengths. They talked about, I mean, they gave really common sense reasons as to why they didn't opt in. And they said we may do this in the future, but right now we don't see it as worth it because we're providing all these services. Is your health department providing all these services already? Could you get grants instead and not risk losing your freedom? How can we make this work? Is there opportunity for growth of nonprofits or charitable organizations to fill some of these gaps and work together? Because I'm not going to go into that. I'll leave that. I encourage you to look at the arguments made by Johnson County. And the last thing I will say, counties can opt out at any time. So if your county opted in and you don't want to be in there, you can still go talk to your county commissioners because it isn't over. They haven't even gotten money, so it would be really easy for them to rescind this. And it goes with the entire time. They can opt out at any time. So if your freedom is worth a couple phone calls and going down to the county commissioners meetings, I'm asking you to step up. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm gonna hold your questions. I want to have us take a break because.
Ma'am, I've got one quick question for the legislators. Real quick, just to
Okay.
follow up.
Well,
They can-
I was gonna let you guys personally talk too.
Well, I just think it might be good for everybody. They can hear me from here. Scott, JD said that what she was saying was wrong. She read through a state code. So my question is, if we all go home tonight and we all study that state code and do you have a thought on what she was saying? Do you agree with JD? Is she lying? Is she wrong? Is that code straight? Where are we at with that?
I think that's the interpretation of code, and I haven't read the code, so I can't give you the answer to that.
I'll follow up with you on that.
Okay, well, one reason why I wanted to take a break a little early, I want us to continue with you actually. I have the information from Jamie Bain, who is the administrator of the Delaware County Health Department too. And so we can look at that and Ashley can comment. Of course, we want her response to those things. So if you, we have a refreshment table back here, if you want to grab something, Pepsi or whatever for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. In the meantime, we'll let Scott and JD talk to you if you have something you'd like to talk to them personally about. Okay? See you back here in about 10 minutes. These guys don't fight. They're really friendly.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just locked you in there. Right. I don't know why they couldn't. Right, that's exactly what's happening. That is absolutely what's happening. Yeah, right, right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's nuts.
How are we getting along? 500 years.
Right. And now all of a sudden you need two vehicles. For what? For who? That's crazy.
Like, I got thinking about it. Spent a lot of time. It makes no sense. Sit there and see an agenda. It's all decided. Right. I understand if you got something else.
Have you ever watched a Muncie City Council meeting? Meeting starts. They do their pledge. They do their prayer. They come up. We got old business, new business. Okay, old business comes up. We're gonna vote tonight to pass the final reading on ordinance 2723. They read the ordinance. They say, anybody here to speak on this ordinance? If it's the administration to put it up, they get up and talk. Anybody here to speak against it? Anybody from the audience have anything to say? And they let people get up and speak. If it's 5 minutes, if it's nobody, if it's an hour, they let them speak. Then they vote. Then they go on to the next ordinance. And they do the same thing over again. And it takes a lot of time. But they let people feel like they let people be heard. People get to speak on what's going on before they vote. And I don't understand why everyone else cannot, for all the corruption Muncie's done, all the craziness, they run their council meetings properly. And I can't understand why everybody else can do that. They're so concerned about letting people speak and they don't want to hear it. They just want to go through it and do it in a half an hour, 20 minutes. And it's just like, you're right. What's the point? What's the point?
I think you get a copy.
Yeah. Dude, city council doing the same thing over there. They're spending $20,000 on outfitting the entire city council chambers in there. They're gonna tear all that stuff out. They're gonna get that old thing that used to be part of the old Randolph County courthouse. They're giving it to the historical society, and they're gonna spend $20,000 on making new tables and desks. What kind of Republicans are you guys? Everybody here is a Republican. They got city police up here. No, I know. I'm saying that over there. Yeah, right. Not even close. No, not even close. Lisa's friend. She's lived in Montana for the last 5 months. Still drawing a check. She's not been to a meeting since January. She lives in Montana now. City council. City council. They think that crap's okay. It's insane. Absolutely crazy. Sure. Sure. This chick's smart. She's on. My friend's on the podcast with me. Yeah. Right. I mean, they should read it. I mean, you can read it one way. Yeah. You sit back 2 days later. Did you get it? You got that? Yeah. Right. You just can't ever sit there. Absolutely. I think they're both. Right? Sure. Sure. Everything they said was right. It's bad bill, they're voting against it, but I think what she's saying is 100% right on that thing that JD said, oh, no, that's wrong. Well, maybe that. Sure. Sure. Right. Still alive? Yeah. Love it. We gotta entertain the folks. I want to get her. I want to have her on. Yeah, it's recording. It's got them. The sounds are crazy. I'm recording up there, so I might have better audio. Okay, yeah. And probably really good angles. Yeah. I was getting all direct. The audio. Yeah, Brittany's like, can you fix audio? I don't know what you did, but I got it bad. Yeah, I knew, but see, I listened to that, at least I'm speaking, and I can hear perfectly. I don't understand what you're having a problem with. When we break, I pulled it out and listened to it. I can hear, I don't understand, yeah, so I don't know. It's having some kind of audio issue. Yeah, I don't get it. I've got a question for Ashley. I want her to get on the show. Okay, she did before. Yeah, okay, so she's the one. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We need to get her on. Oh yeah, she's great. That's cool. Yeah, I like when she changes. You see the whole size. Oh yeah, it's super. It's like 10 times. So it's like this. Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. My film edit's gonna be great. I love it. It's fun. I love it. We didn't call police on us this time. So amazingly, you like when I told her, I was like, we'll be okay. We just don't like being filmed. I don't know, dude. Transparency is scary. It is. Sometimes you call the police a bad kid. Right. On the show. Oh God, I knew that was gonna be bad. How's that weed eater? Yeah. Swear it. Hey, it's not as bad as your last flip up. No kidding. It could be worse. That's what I was looking for. There's a vending machine out there. Do you want a water? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Let me see if I can see what it is. Maybe if I got it right. Eat right. All right, folks. So we're at a break. I just want to let you know what's going on. I apologize about the audio. So Josh was my static recording guy. So I'm going to get a camera. I'm going to go get an actual camera that can record with boom mic and all of that. Okay, I didn't think they did. Okay, grape Gatorade. Oh God. Yeah, grape's like purple. It is. What it's like you got. Yeah, that's no good. There's Brandon. Am I centered in? Yeah, it's real good. Yeah, that'll be a good thumbnail. That'll be a good thumbnail. I'm up front and center. I'll have alternate angles. It's like that Seinfeld where Kramer was bootlegging movies. Yeah. He's like, I need you to do his own. Like, you ever down there? Yeah, do his own director, his own little flair, a little style to it. That's hilarious. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. I don't understand, man. I've never. I'm not a smoker, but yeah.
You're recording?
Yes, sir. Yep, yep. We put it out. I've got a political talk show. So we try to keep them straight. Sure does. Absolutely. So we air on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The YouTube channel is called the Political Spotlight, and you just go to YouTube and look up the Political Spotlight. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, X, or whatever it's called now. But that's where it's at. Me and the guy up there in the front. And Kate Thornburg.
Yoko, you had your chance. If you're not watching this live, you missed out.
I don't think she is. She's one of the people I don't think she is.
Yeah. She missed out on some good old fashioned speed run.
Yeah, Rick, listen, Rick, if you can only, here's the thing, that's the issue. So that's what I was telling you when Brandon popped up. For the longest time, Josh was our static camera guy, so he had the thing. I was the live and sound guy, so this is not my forte, but I'm going to go now that Josh is not part of the team. I'm gonna go and get the thing that he had. We'll get it figured out, so we won't have this problem again. Anybody knows that I'm a stickler for sound and video, but I apologize about this. Unfortunately, not at the moment. I can't. I wish I could.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much, Scott and JD and Bill. You're thinking, are you Bill or you?
Either one. Hey, you is fine.
You don't care as long as they fire you something.
That's right. Call me late.
I realize that the people
See you,
on
Scott.
the side did not get Ashley's information. So,
So it's a really ugly form. Usually I try to give more white space and make it look prettier to the eye, but you can visit h4ml.org and then click on the button that says blog, and it'll be the most recent blog post. And we do update the website because for some reason it's not rolling over. There's also a web address if somebody wants to, actually, there's a web address here if you want to take a picture of it. And you guys can get that made out. It just goes over the talking points and the things that I talked about in regards to Johnson County opting out and how to have these conversations with your county commissioners and your legislators. So what I really try to do is break things down because, did you have a question? Politics is hard and it moves at the speed of light. There have been many times where I kind of felt like I was being spun around in circles. And these bills are super long, so it makes it really hard to discern what's going on, who do you trust, and I really will give the legislators a little bit of slack, which is uncharacteristic of me. But I will give them a little bit of slack because things do change super fast, and they are, I mean, I was focusing on this bill and maybe 3 others this session. And things change so fast, if you're not directly involved with that bill, it's hard to keep up, but that's not an excuse for voting wrong, and I'm really thankful. Scott and I just had a little bit of a conversation about that, and I think his eyes were open to the fact that if you don't agree, you need to vote no, you need to vote your conscience, and so I'm gonna continue to have that conversation with him, and I'm gonna encourage all of you to do the same. Because, or if you have a different elected official, or maybe somebody like JD who doesn't recognize those issues, who's maybe been a little bit more beat up by the establishment, the House party, you need to be having this conversation. So one of the things that we're doing as an organization right now is developing the Watchdogs program. And I've talked about this before, but we are at a pivotal point right now. Things are really interesting. Hoosiers for Medical Liberty, as many of you know, started in 2020. Right before COVID, I went to a political class and learned that I could be mean to people who are, you know, betraying us and not doing the right thing. And I was like, sign me up. I want to do that. And have that job, please. I'm very good at it. But if I don't have to be mean, I'm not going to be mean. I want to see them succeed because that means that we as citizens succeed. So, you know, I went to that class on February 1st and I filed the paperwork for our nonprofit on February 8th. Sat down with the lawyer on a Saturday and filed the paperwork. Game on. Okay, we truly need to make politics something that we all can be proud of. And the way that we do that is by having regular conversation with our legislators or any elected person for that matter, and then holding them accountable when they vote the wrong way. JD Prescott had a primary challenger last year. He is on his best behavior as far as voting because he knows that there are people out there like myself who are going to take those votes and say, look, you noticed he brought those vote sheets today? If you notice, he brought them so you could all see them because he knew that I was going to call him out if he did the wrong thing. This is how we get things done. Now, on the opposite end of that spectrum, I had a great conversation with Mr. Moore. When we have legislators who are consistently, not occasionally, consistently doing the right thing, we give them solid ground to stand on. We help them do their job right. It's not, oh, my elected official knows what I want. They'll do the right thing. Because guess what? They have a really difficult job down there. I don't envy them. Although I am great at debating, I don't envy them. Because they have a lot of pressure coming at them down on the state house floor and in those private caucus meetings that we aren't privy to. So we need to have them know that when they are doing the right thing consistently and being brave and pushing the hard issues, that we are going to be here to support them. Now, Hoosiers for Medical Liberty does not support yours or oppose any political candidate, but you as constituents can. And they just have to know that it is conditional. They are your employee. They are your employee. You get to manage them. And that's what we're doing through the Watchdog program. I'm working with an amazing volunteer who has some experience in interrogation. This just comes natural to me. I'm blessed. But I want to develop some classes so that way our watchdogs are prepared, not to go in there and lambast them, but so that when you guys can identify when they start feeding you lines, when they start spinning you in circles, because you know politicians do that. Okay, so we want to give you the tools to create a government that you can be proud of. That's our Watchdogs program. Go to h4ml.org/watchdogs where you can text us. We do all of our legislative updates through text message because they're super quick. And I just make it so you can tap the phone number and call the legislator, and I give you an example of what to say. The Watchdogs program, we operate very similarly to this, except your responsibility is going to be to go meet with your legislator in person one time a year. Not too bad, right? I want you to also have 2 to 3 other sections of dialogue, whether that's in person, whether that's via email or phone. They need to know who you are, right? Because this is how we create that employer-employee relationship. This is how they know that you're going to maintain watching what they're doing and accountability. And then we want you to come back and tell us what you're hearing. Now, if you have been part of, I know Janet, testified to this, part of our tactic is using those text messages to mobilize you guys and make those phone calls, because you're at work, you're doing things, the holidays just got over, maybe still in a turkey coma. And it's difficult to keep up, but with those text messages, it makes it really fast. When you give us information back about what's happening, that helps us gauge the climate down at the state house. And that can be invaluable, because then I know where to turn up the heat and where to back off, who to be nice to, all those kinds of things. And so this is going to be a key part moving forward. I mentioned the Bodily Integrity Act. All other legislative actions will be secondary to the Bodily Integrity Act. Okay? If we can secure our bodily integrity, we don't have to worry about these mandates, because it will be illegal in the state. Whew, wouldn't that be great? Not baloney exemptions that leave a lot of people out. Did you have a question?
Well, do you have any legislators or that are?
We're talking to a few. Right now, everybody's a little gun shy. And even the legislators that I thought were going to be our champions are preoccupied. That's a nice way to say that. So that's frustrating. And it's a matter of changing culture. That's what we're in. We're in a culture war. And the culture down at the state house is comply or you get nothing. And so part of me has an empathetic side for these individuals. The other part of me says, you went in knowing what you're getting into, suck it up and get to work. Maybe that's a little bit too farm girl, but I don't really care. We gotta fix this mess, and we're losing ground in so many places. If we have security at our county level, our counties can tell the feds to take a hike. Do you guys realize that? So that's why this is so important. And I feel bad for these guys a little bit, because I'm not sure that they knew that portion about the code was there. I'm not sure that they fully grasped the ramifications of that. And then if you want to get into the psychological aspect, we talked a little bit about, if I accept this is wrong, I have to take responsibility for it, and that can be very difficult. So they're in a tough position, but no more excuses. They know now, and now they need to do better. End of story. So Watchdogs, I really want to see this program up and running. We are going to be pleasant, because you don't treat your employees like dirt, right? You want to praise them. Maybe praise is the wrong word. You want to let them know when they've done a good job, and you also want to hold them accountable when they're not doing their job, like energy cleaning at the scenes in restaurants. Charge $20 for a side salad. For a side salad, sorry, my bad. Does anybody have any questions about what's happening or want to talk about anything? I'd like to have some dialogue.
So, you want me to have the mic? I gotta run. First of all, thanks for what you do. I've spent time kind of digging through legislation, all that stuff. I know it's difficult, can be a little tedious, not always fun, but it's important, so it does it. I guess my second question is, or I guess the question is, while we're talking about medical liberty, last year's House Bill 1001, 2022 1001, I had a talk with my representative, and he informed me that I was lying about people with you being, the director of Hoosiers for Medical Liberty, you've heard of people losing their jobs because of that.
Yeah, it's a sad state because they have, and this is where it's interesting because these legislators will say, well, you have a choice. You can get a job elsewhere. What? So, yes, I have heard people losing their jobs. I have had students contacting me from very prestigious schools, and what's interesting is these schools, they are at the highest levels, okay? Very difficult to get into. One student had a full ride scholarship, and this actually is not medical field, but they weren't denied entry based on the COVID vaccine. They were denied entry based on not having their childhood vaccinations. And so this student is giving up a full ride scholarship. Well, facing the choice between giving up a full ride scholarship or getting a massive amount of vaccines that they may or may not need. I mean, the right to bodily integrity is such a fundamental premise, and we see this idea bastardized across the board. And yet, in this most fundamental form, we can't have the right to say no to something entering in our bodies. How does that work? So, the beating around the bush, yes, I have heard that. And, you know, unfortunately, it seems like your representative has a really big issue with confrontation or maybe having to admit if you've done something wrong. I would have a lot more respect, you know, if he, first of all, how can you know that you know you lost a job based on that? That's not reasonable to think you would know everything. And so why create such a big stir over that? Does he have a guilty conscience? Is that what's going on? I don't know. I can't speak for him, but yes, there have been lots of people who lost their jobs over this, and they continue to have issues with this. And I think we're going to face another round. And it's really interesting because that bill, I believe, was specific to COVID-19. And so if they name it something else, are we going to be back in this whole situation? Like, heaven forbid, some other illness pops up. We're going to be back in this situation where we're fighting for our bodily integrity. And that's why we have to have the Bodily Integrity Act. We need to nip it in the bud. We don't need to be going and picking like little birdies at this problem because it's going to be continuous. Any other questions?
Just a comment. One of the biggest problems we have, and I expressed this to the representative, and that is the constant change in definitions. That's what they do. Dead serious. It's bait and switch. And therefore, because of the new stats are put up based on a false premise. And the COVID-19 is a prime example. When you have swab tests for 95% false positive, and you get $8,000 federal money for renewal, everybody's got COVID. And all those graphs aren't worth the paper they're written. This is the difficulty. And we're seeing this over and over and over in changes in definition. Now, I was here back in February in regard to child gender change. Believe it or not, that went on pretty far. And in fact, I testified for the Ohio House in regard to gonadotrophic analogs. And they keep changing the field. For instance, the actual number of people, percentage-wise, who are not heterosexual is about 3%. Always has been. You're not going to change that. That goes back to the severe ends of the, okay? That's fine. They're over 18. That's what they want to do. God bless them. However, now they've changed the definition to 7%. And it gives them more weight. One of the things that I was expressing this on is the chart that was handed out here. And you thought you had problems getting the paper. Where Indiana is below the national average. Okay? This was actually put on at the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation Symposium Unfortunately, Vivian Conwicker passed away. But I sent her, said she could, and it's free. And it's for employers as well. They showed how this is step by zip code and has to do with how you tally. So don't let this graph be completely believable. That's the difficulty you run into. I mean, you can make a statistic fly left, right, and center simply by changing the definition. And then, yeah, you move the goalpost constantly. And this is what we're seeing over and over and over. So I'm here to take back to Ohio what I'm learning here. Because if it's here, guess what's coming next? And I do stay in contact with legislators. Anyways, I got to get rolling myself, but you hit that dead on the head.
You know what? Thank you so much. I mean, I just appreciate you being a doctor coming here, just being so brave.
Do you know how many people who testified for child butchering actually had the material I gave you? They took actual ethics course? No idea. No idea. I gave you a can. All you had to do is find an attorney, what was the book into? None of the opposition had the ethics. And yet we started out with eugenics. Then we went on to Nuremberg. They say, oh, you're stopping the kids, that's not, you're a Nazi. No, that's what we hung the Nazis for, right? And don't forget, Winston Churchill was forcibly sterilizing the poor in London at the very same time to eliminate poverty. And the Nazis were right. They were doing the same thing. FDR had the M Project for the quote unquote Jewish problem in the United States. He was going to put them in Patagonia, take Uganda, make that the new Israel, etc. That was all in the works. Then we went on, of course, to Tuskegee, the Latino contraceptive studies, into Belmont, which has Section D for protection of children. Nobody, these are laws on the books. And nobody wants to take a look at the laws on the books. So that's why I'm here tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Lindquist.
God bless you.
Unfortunately, Dr. Lindquist is in Ohio. But he came all the way over this evening to hear and to provide some information for us too. So thank you, Dr. Lindquist.
I appreciate all that
Okay.
you do.
Yeah.
And I always try to get young people.
Yes, yeah.
I really do, because that's the future.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, actually, I want to see about 5 more minutes for questions, and then I want us to go over what the information I got from Jamie, and you can respond to that. Well,
Start at the table.
I mean,
That's fine. I'm just,
yeah, that's what you do.
that is what I do.
So, okay, anyone else have any questions for Ashley right now? Oh, hi, right here. Because I thought,
I don't know if you can answer this, but you touched on a real soft spot with me. I've been reading a lot about preventative medicine. And you've heard Dr. Kenneth Cooper that has the aerobics down in Dallas. He does preventative medicine. And I read a lot of his articles. And, you know, he has been preaching to the, well, not even the choir, he's been preaching for years, 20 years, about prevention. And that most doctors won't go with that because it's not as dramatic, you don't make too much money, and all of that stuff. And he talks about lifestyle. That's what he does. When he doctors someone, that's exactly what he does. He does the nutrition, he does the, you know, just everything. And it bothers me that that's what we do. We've got big pharma who now has control of the so-called studies that are done academically with all those ties, and they can put out whatever they want, they can change whatever they want, and they get money and they hand it out to the doctors. So they're not, I even have friends they have her serious medical issues. She goes from one doctor to another, and all they do is run a test or two, give her different medicine. They never go after the problem. It's just let something go down her throat, and that's it. How in the world are we going to get big pharma out of that? And the legislatures, you know, they're the ones who also get back, just like the teachers union and stuff. How do we do it?
It's a cultural change, just like everything else. It's culture. So it's talking to your grandkids. It's getting them involved not only in politics, but in healthier life choices. When I worked for a major insurance company, and my job was to call senior citizens, anybody on Medicare, Medicaid, with that company, and work with them to decrease their risk for going back to the hospital and improve, you know, compliance and things like that. And you know, it's very hard for me to work in a traditional setting because I see how these things make such a difference. That's always how my family was. You know, my family was very, very much active and real food, healthy food, good food. And so it comes naturally for me. And when I see these patients, you know, in the hospitals eating these meals, it kills me. I'm like, oh, well, no wonder you're back. Oh, you went to KFC? Well, that might have a little something. But when I worked at the insurance company, it was amazing because I was really able to sit down and talk with my patients about what was going on. And one of the biggest things is it's hard to be healthy. It's hard to be healthy. It takes work every single day. And so when the medical industry started going to say to aspirin and call me in the morning, it was easy. All of a sudden we have this quick fix for all of our problems. And why would we want to invest? You know, we're all busy. We all love our American dream and doing all the things. And, you know, Aunt Sally makes this great, you know, turtle mousse pie or whatever. And you know, we can find all these excuses. Oh, it's okay. I'll just go to the doctor and get Ozempic for my diabetes, and I'll lose 45 pounds because that's what the commercials tell me. No, that's not how it works. And by working with my patients and getting to the root of the problem, not necessarily just with their health challenges, but what was preventing them from an emotional and psychological standpoint, we were really able to remove some of those barriers. And as they started to implement small changes, we saw dramatic results. I could tell stories about the different patients that I had, but that's one of the things that I would love to start incorporating. Once I get medical delivery taken care of, I will be moving on to healthcare. So these guys aren't going to get rid of me very easily, but I do have my own consulting business, and that's what I work on, is just kind of going through, number one, learning how to advocate for yourself, understanding, you know, wellness 101, what your doctor wishes they can teach you. And when your doctor has 15 minutes to see you in their office, and then they, you know, have to move on to the next patient, they don't have the time to educate you. You also have to be compliant with those health lifestyle changes. And it's complicated because it's not one thing that's just gonna all of a sudden fix your health problems. And so it takes time, and we are weak creatures. If we don't see results right away, we get frustrated and we quit. And so it is difficult, and you can't have your patients in every 2 weeks. There's a lot of things that go into that. So it's a culture change. We need to be having these conversations. We need to be encouraging one another. I think there's a lot of excuses that we can make as to why we don't do things, but sometimes it's just, I talk a lot about neural pathways in my coaching, and I compare it to cow fields because farm kid. If you ever seen a pasture that gets grown up and the cows start walking out to the end of the field, first it's barely, you know, they're barely able to get through. And then as those cows travel that same path, there becomes a path. And that's the way our brains work. So the more we go to these positive places, the more we use these different coping mechanisms, healthy coping mechanisms, instead of a bag of chips from TV at night, or whatever the case is, those neural pathways become easier, and you'll default to those rather than the worn path to, oh, I'm just going to take some insert medicine name to take care of this problem. I know I can correct these behaviors, and you're going to default to that. So cultural change, having the conversations, encouraging the people around you, and just being aware that we're all struggling. We all have burdens that we're carrying, whether we share them outwardly or not. And so creating that culture of compassion and encouragement is going to be.
The only thing I wanted to add to that is insurance. You know how that goes. I do everything natural and everything we do goes out of pocket. Went through some health stuff, and if I went the traditional way, I would not be well today. But we did the other one, and insurance won't cover any of it. So that goes along with it, and I go back to, like you said, education. People believe their doctors. They go in, the doctor says, I need this, and they walk out the door. I see it with my father, I see it with my sister, she's going through autoimmune stuff. It's too much money the other way, and it's too hard, and I don't have time to put my own.
So the one thing I will say is there is a parallel system that's popping up and really coming about, and this goes back to the whole research and different doctors and things like that. I don't know that the answer is getting, I don't know that and these are my personal opinions right now, not the opinions of Hoosiers for Medical Liberty, because we stick just to that right to bodily integrity. But I'm not sure that the answer is insurance, because then we're just going to have more regulation on those things. And I really don't want the government telling me what homeopathic remedies that I can use or what herbs I can or cannot use. And so it's going to be really interesting. And I think the market is going to shift some of those things. It's been really great to sit on some of these meetings. Because of the work I do with Hoosiers for Medical Liberty, I get to be part of some of these national groups and meetings and get to hear these things. And I do constantly advocate, and sometimes I get pushback for this. I advocate for the traditional system because that's where I came from. And one of my biggest things, my biggest pet peeves is I refuse to leave somebody behind. And I really think what we're going to see is if we would just say we're done with the Western medicine paradigm and switch over to an alternative system, we're going to have people that either don't know, can't afford, don't trust it, insert whatever excuse, and everybody's stuck in this Western medicine paradigm. So I think we need to work on creating that bridge between the alternatives and the standard treatments, so that way people can go in and out of those as they please. We can really focus on these things. I don't know what the answer is, right now, but I do think that this is a conversation that is going to continue to happen, and I think the market is going to shift automatically. It already has started shifting. People moving out of traditional insurance companies, moving into cost sharing plans with the physician, different things like that, different co-ops, and just all sorts of really cool stuff happening. So I think that cultural change is there, and I've been working with a crew of different physicians and other researchers that are working to put out unbiased information. And I kind of have a hard time saying unbiased because I think we all have our own personal bias, but these people I know have it in their hearts that they just want the truth out there. They want the information so that way people can make an informed decision about their healthcare. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, because my choices are going to be different than yours and yours and yours, because we're all individuals and we all have different experiences and circumstances, and that's the way it should be. So
I'm gonna have one more question, and I'd like to make it short.
we'll make sure we get those.
Well, I have some people who are here especially to hear some of the things that are on Jamie's. So, here we go.
Well, I wanted to say one thing when she was talking about the doctors. They are trained by pharmaceuticals. And where the pharmaceuticals, this is their mindset. I mean, I have doctors, I have nurses in her family, just like my daughter. She believed things, and I say, that really isn't good. Mom, the first thing they taught us was the dietitian. And so, anyway, then I'll explain to her, and she still is so programmed that this is her mindset, and it's like we need to start with the pharmaceuticals and start making it hard on them, however it's done, but and educate the doctors, because they are programmed. And it's just, and I've did everything natural for 32 years. And you was talking about on TV, I go to herbalists here. There are herbalists that right here, they will test you and tell you what you need from time to time. Yes, it's expensive, but nobody was more poor than me when I started it. And I made it because my health is worth more than anything else. And so, I mean, start with pharmaceutical, where they stop lying, just like with the diabetes, their diets for diabetes is all messed up. And if you go in and take the class, and you question them, then they get angry with you when you speak.
Okay. I saw one. Everyone, can you do it real quickly, because we need to.
Give money to the universities and the educational places. We could get companies that do sell like herbs and things like that, give them money to and have. There's one person who said her doctor said they only had like 3 hours.
There are so many issues with the medical system, but I think the thing that we need to focus on is the fact that there are a lot of doctors out there. Doctors and nurses don't typically, I mean, there are always going to be some that prove me wrong, but typically they do it because they love their patients and they want to take good care of them. And so as they see these things, they'll start coming around. We have to meet them with compassion and love. I'm currently writing a book on not just like, what is that word? Where they amnesty, no amnesty, but we need to meet them with love and forgiveness, because they're really going to struggle as they recognize the things that they've done over years, decades has caused harm. And I struggle with that personally. And so that's why I'm writing a book on it, is because it is difficult to think that everything that you taught was wrong. Lots of work to do. One bite at a time, bodily integrity first, and then we'll go on to healthcare. Let me see these recommendations.
Okay. Well, this is an outline of some of the ladies back there need want this information. This is, it's divided at least 60% of the money that we get it must be spent for preventive core services. And the other 40%, let's see here. Well, I need it.
You just need to sit down.
When they say no, there's back away slowly.
Up to 40% funding can be spent for core services. So I wanted to go through quickly. These are the ones on that have to be spent for preventive core services. And the first one is tobacco prevention and cessation, chronic disease prevention, trauma and injury prevention, fatality review, maternal and child health, school health liaison. That's one of the things you were asking about. And he has descriptions on here of what is included in those, if you have a question about that. Lead case management and risk assessment, access to and linkage to clinical care, tuberculosis prevention and case management. Health-related areas during emergencies and disasters, immunizations, infectious disease surveillance and prevention, vital records, food protection. You know, if I skipped over somewhere into the 40%. Environmental, public health. Yeah, here it is. Up to 40% of the funding can be spent for these services. Food protection. Environmental, public health. Tattoo, body piercing, eyelash safety, and sanitation. And so, I don't know, when I went through this list, I thought, how do you make people stop eating too much? How do you keep them from getting fat? I don't know, maybe there's a way, but here is, did any of you have any questions about any of those titles that you want me to elaborate on what it is or what they can do?
That's about it.
What?
It's not. The tattoo parlors are something that already happens. It's just the sanitary inspection to make sure they're not reusing needles or have infestations or things like that. Because if you use dirty needles, you have the risk of transmission of bloodborne pathogen, and that increases your risks for the community as a whole. So those are things that have been long-standing. And I mean, eyelashes cracks me up because when we had SB 74, the first year we were around, they heard eyelash extension bill, and they made it so that way anybody without a license could do it. They didn't have to have a license to add eyelash extensions instead of hearing our bill. But those are things that should be like. There needs to be a little bit of oversight, I think, on making sure that we're not using dirty needles in tattoo parlors and stuff like that. Those have been there. That's
one of the things that I thought we would like to know is, and it was included in the letter that went to Jamie. Will a review of grant requirements be done to ensure entities receiving them are held accountable for meeting metrics and providing public health measures, not chronic disease management? Your constituents deserve to know that when the county contracts with local businesses, the businesses will be held accountable to provide appropriate public health measures. And this is Jamie's response. SEA 4 requires the posting of any job openings and any contract opportunities to occur for a minimum of 30 days prior to fulfillment. Any contracts that are entered into under this funding will be presented to both the Delaware County Board of Health as well as the county commissioners for approval. All funding distributed will come with requirements and deliverables. Metrics and measures would vary based on the agreement in question. For example, if we contract with an agency to provide health screenings or to provide vaccines at a remote location or to host trainings or education to the public, it would be difficult to specify the number of clients served, as that variable would be determined by public interest and subsequent participation in the service provided. At this time, we are unsure what amount, if any, would initially be utilized in the form of grants. So does that?
Yeah, you heard right there those magic words, population served. That's the metric they're using, not the rate of diabetes, not the rate of heart disease, not, childhood obesity. Now, I will say, one of the things that I talked about when I testified out at the state house is these things take a long time to measure. It's not going to change overnight. These things do not, by nature, change overnight. And so that was one of my issues and why I suggested a grant program, which they claimed that they did, but they completely bastardized the idea. If they had set goals and they were using this to where counties could apply and then they had kind of a plan set up, you would have more control and accountability over that. What we're going to see is every county is going to do something drastically different. We're not really, if there is any positive effect out of this at all, it's going to be difficult to tell. It's going to be different in every county, and how they measure that is important. As Dr. Lindquist was talking about, you can skew data. My job at this hospital as part of coordinator for the heart failure program was data specialist. And so I was pulling data from patient charts and I was synthesizing that data, and it would be very easily for me to manipulate those numbers based on different variables. And that can easily happen here. So we made a really bad investment. And only time is going to tell if we will ever recover this money, or if it's going to be fruitful, or if big hospital woo-woo is going to get just their pockets padded and be able to continue to do the same things with no change in results. And that's what's frustrating to me, is because we really could be using this money for public good, and instead we made it, in the words of our lovely legislators here, we made there was not much good to this bill. I mean, I do understand, and I think that having these metrics, some of them sound good, but you can have a great tool in the wrong hands and it be used as a weapon. And I think that's what we've done here. And what is it, $150 million, $75 million for the first year, $150 million for the second. And the other thing is these legislators, not necessarily these ones right here, but these legislators are going around, and even if they voted against the bill, they're telling their constituents. I was there at DeKalb County when Senator Johnson told the constituents and his county commissioners, I think we should take this money because otherwise we're going to leave it on the table and it's going to go to another county. Don't do that. You are part of the problem. Leaving money on the table is not an excuse to do the wrong thing. We go back to that idea of lemmings jumping off the cliff. And so it's really frustrating, and I pray that good comes out of it. I'm sure at some level we can find the silver lining, but we need to make sure that this doesn't continue, and we really have to work to hold these legislators accountable. And that's the only reason these guys are scared of me. I was really surprised that they showed up. I prepared the whole thing to talk about tonight because I thought they wouldn't show up. And
They're not that kind of legislators. I'm sorry.
I don't know them. So I don't know if they showed up, if they knew I was going to be here again. I don't know what's going to happen, but we have to continue to hold them accountable. This is what it takes. They have to be willing to do this thing. And I appreciate the candid conversation that I had with Scott. That was great. That is what we need. So they're not afraid of me because I am whatever, insert adjective here. They know that I can communicate very well with you guys, and that you guys will act on the information that you're being given. That for whatever reason, you have chosen to trust me. I am being a voice for the people. So if you guys quit doing what you're doing and you don't step up the game a little bit, if you haven't already started meeting your legislators, they're going to see me as empty threats and a big mouth. Seriously. So I need you guys. This organization is run by people like you, by a gentleman by the name of Rod in Wayne County, who's just lighting things up over there, and I'm really, really proud of him because he's doing it on his own board, and he'll come back and we'll have some conversations. But going over things like this, having these conversations, This is also important. So I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. I want to thank you for having faith in what I'm saying and investigating, questioning what I'm saying to make sure it's right. Make sure you agree.
Oh, I just wanted to mention when she was going through that list of what the money was going to be spent on, like Dr. Lindquist said, that the definition, and then I'm hearing chronic disease immunizations. Well, right there is a tie right there. And what kind of propaganda are they going to use to, and it's worrisome.
So our focus really needs to be on securing bodily integrity.
Yes.
It's really truly, we cannot accept anything less than bodily integrity. There's a lot of things, the things that flag me the most, the school clinics, the school liaisons going in. There's been a lot of talk about, we need to regulate these school clinics. And while I think that there should be tools, I'm scared right now, we don't have anything in our law that is regarding school clinics. Okay, there's nothing in there. My concern is that if we start regulating school clinics and we start putting it into code, schools are going to be required to have some sort of clinic. And even though we go in with our best intention to put safety rails or guardrails on these school clinics, we're going to end up, we watched what happened with 2022's House Bill 1001. We were asking with SB 74 the year prior, we were asking for no vaccine mandates for vaccines at all in the workplace. Their response back was, let's just regulate it. Let's make exemptions. And that bill got worse and worse and worse, and they were trying to do as little as possible. And then the noisy voices of the pharmaceutical industry, the hospital industry, the federal government got their way. And so we had exclusions from exemptions. Wrap your mind around that. Exclusions from exemptions. So people were excluded from being able to file an exemption, okay? Including hospitals, federal contractors, entertainment industry, and there's like a list of people who were excluded from being able to file an exemption. And they created so much regulation in there, and they added discriminatory testing twice a week. So if you exercise your right to religious freedom and to reject a vaccine based on your religious beliefs, they now can discriminate against you by testing twice a week. And that's what happens when we try to regulate these things. So there's talk about regulating school clinics. We just need to say no. Keep the clinics out of the schools. Yes. No school clinics, period. Right. Not guardrails, not safety nets. No. Off-site parental presence.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and this is gonna become a very hot issue, and this is gonna be
Our time runs out at 8:30. I have one question here, and then I wanted to leave you with a figure.
I want to know about the illegals. How many illegals are in Indiana? How many are in Delaware County? And they're going to be a drain on our resources. Does anybody know how many are here?
That's not an issue that I follow.
Really?
Yeah, there's only so many hours in the day, and I am a crazy person, and I do a lot of work, and I get a lot done in a little amount of time, but I can't tackle all the issues.
Well, we've heard reports that they brought a lot of diseases in that we had already conquered. Tuberculosis. And would that be a health issue?
Tuberculosis has been around, and it circulates anytime there's migration. When we think about these issues, it becomes very muddy very fast, and so I'm hesitant to get into it. But what I will say is we have to remember, my family immigrated, there are a lot of good people that are in bad situations. My my family went from Auschwitz to Egypt and passed through a bunch of different countries. And then when they got to the US soil, they were told that they had too much Nazi influence and they couldn't come into the United States. So Mexico set up a village and that's where they landed. My family had to work very hard to come into the United States, get sponsored, do all these things. Good people can come through immigration. And we have to remember that our right to bodily integrity extends not only to just citizens, but that's a human right. And so there's a lot of really touchy subjects there. That's all I'm going to say is bodily integrity is right. The right not to accept.
We'll have to have Ashley come back when we just have her by herself and she can have the whole time that we are, it is time for us to leave. I wanted to read you some figures here. This concerns the 25% copay, which we would be responsible for. And for the first year, the minimum money that we will receive is $1,300,872.38. The maximum is $1,734,496.50. And the county's match, an average of county tax levy related funds distributed to the local health department in the preceding 3 years, which would be 2021, 2022, and 2023. And I don't know what that is at this point. In 2025, the minimum, because we just have figures right now for 2024 and 2025. In 2025, the minimum is $2,601,744.75. The maximum is $3,468,993. And the county match minimum, it would be $545,527.13. And the maximum for the match would be $727,369.50. So that's a pretty big amount of money that we're going to be responsible for. And it has to come from somewhere. It cannot come from federal grants. It cannot come from fees that they've already collected or that they normally collect. So it has to come from somewhere else. And that somewhere else often is taxes.
So this is me doing their job, right? When I looked at this for a few counties, and I actually talked to I always say the assessor, but I'm pretty sure it's the auditor. I think I have it right this time. When I talked to the auditor, the numbers for the county match seem to coincide pretty closely with what your budget is currently. And so I don't anticipate a huge tax increase. But it is concerning, what is this going to do? How is this going to change in the future? And I don't know the breakdown. So I don't know how much of that budget, actually, when I talked to the County, they said that's what they allotted. Their county, that's what came out of the county tax amount. And so those two numbers, what you would be expected to pay for your county match and what your county had already put into the health department, I believe, excluding any grants or things like that, was very close to your county match. And that's why this is such an impossible thing to pass up, because you're putting in the same amount as a county as what you had in the past, but you're getting this additional $1.3 to $1.8 million for your county this year, and then that goes up next year, and there will be an increase in what you're required to pay next year. But again, I think, I don't know what that discrepancy is, and so that's what we want to look at as far as increasing taxes. So it's very clear. Right now, I don't think you're going to look at a what makes it so difficult to pass up. Because they knew going in, they were gonna have to set the stakes high. And I will brag on our activists, the people that fought against this, they did a great job because we really stopped them from making it a mandatory across the board for everybody. And there were a couple other things that we did to walk them back on their coercion. So you guys did a really good job.
I'll see you at 9 p.m.
Ashley, I hope you'll consider.
I'll see you at 9 p.m.
See this again, and thank you, everyone.